Forget fennec foxes and hedgehogs. Move over, quokkas. There's a new viral squee taking over the internet, and her name is Moo Deng. Tiny, shiny, and as round as a Christmas ham. She's even blushing pink from being so dang cute. And don't mess with her, because her cousins on the other side of the tracks are some of the most aggressive behemoths in the world. These are the hippopotamuses. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault, and you're watching Animalogic. Hippos are some of the coolest, weirdest, and most dangerous animals in Africa. They kill as many people as crocodiles each year. Yet, when they're babies, they're so adorable we can't help but fall in love with them. Today, only 2 species of hippos exist: the massive river hippo, aka the Nile hippo, and the fun-sized pygmy hippo, Moo Deng's kind. Though they differ greatly in size, hippos are so strange that nothing else could be mistaken for them. They look almost prehistoric and essentially unique. There's no other animal you could see walking down the street and think, oh yeah, that's a hippo. They're iconic. Both hippo species have rotund bodies, broad grinning mouths, whiskery snouts, and tusks that grow throughout their lives. And they both have special adaptations for water, like the ability to close their ears and nostrils underwater and stay submerged for up to 5 minutes at a time. So yes, let's take this chance to see a baby pygmy hippo in the water. Aww! Hey everyone, we have exciting news! We're thrilled to announce the release of Animalogic's very first book, Strange Creatures. This book dives into the most incredible animals we've ever featured on the show, with each chapter packed with my illustrations and stunning full-color images. It's a fun and engaging way to learn about the animal kingdom, and a perfect tool to spark kids' interest in science. Each chapter breaks down an animal's biology, behavior, and all the coolest facts you need to know about these fascinating creatures. Animalogic's Strange Creatures is a must-have addition to your own library, or the perfect gift for an animal lover this upcoming holiday season. Click the link in the description to check it out, and if you can, order a copy. It would mean the world. Thank you so much, and I hope that you love the book. Pygmy hippos prefer thick jungle and spend less time in water than river hippos, but we'll get into that a bit later. One of the first things that you notice when you see a hippo is that they seem to glimmer. Babies even seem to have an adorably glossy finish. The radiant glow makes it look like they're wearing makeup, but it's actually just good old sunscreen. Hippos produce their own sunscreen-like secretions to protect themselves from the sun's rays. This oily fluid is called blood sweat due to its color. This secretion protects their skin from the sun and from infections thanks to its antibacterial properties. Sadly, for all of us pygmy hippo appreciators, they're mostly active at night, which makes you wonder why they need so much sunscreen in the first place. Hippos, both giant and pygmy, are nocturnal. During the day, they stay cool in water, or in the pygmy hippo's case, hide in dense thickets, away from the dehydrating heat of the sun. At night, these herbivores emerge to graze on aquatic plants, grasses, fruits, and other vegetation. Hippos also have a quirky habit of marking territory with their poop, creating what's known as a dung shower. They use their tails like sprinklers to scatter their dung, an excellent way to spread your chemical markers in all directions. But while both hippo species mark their territories this way, common hippos take protecting their turf to the extreme. Because of this, they're the deadliest land animals in Africa. Common hippos are fiercely protective of their dung-marked land. And I'm not just talking about Pablo Escobar's invasive Colombian cocaine hippos. They attack anything they view as a threat, whether it's a lion, crocodile, or even a person. This territoriality has made them the largest invasive species in the world, as they have spread along large parts of the Magdalena River of Colombia. The river hippos were imported by Escobar for his private zoo. But once he was captured and his zoo fell into disrepair, the hippos escaped into the nearby river system. Having no natural predators and enjoying a lush waterway with no dry season, the hippos multiplied quickly. This affected the local ecosystem as they crushed the soil and destroyed fish spawning areas. The Colombian government is currently dealing with them. If you want to learn more about them, click on the link at the end of the episode. Their actions are necessary because hippos can be deadly. In Africa, they cause an estimated 500 human fatalities each year. While they may look clumsy and cumbersome, hippos are actually built to kill. They have extremely sharp tusks that can reach over half a meter long, and the bite strength behind those teeth is 3 times that of a lion. They are also 3 times faster than the average human, not just in the water, but also on land. Outswimming or outrunning a raging hippo is simply not an option. To their credit, common hippos will give you ample warning that they are angry about your existence. They'll open their enormous jaws super wide, displaying their mouth daggers. They'll also make head scoops, grunts, and aggressive splashes in the water to warn any threat that they are dead serious about an attack. Unlike pygmies, common hippos live in large family groups called herds, consisting of around 10 to 20 constantly changing individuals. It's not unheard of for groups to balloon to as many as 150 members. Within these groups, clashes frequently break out, sometimes with lethal consequences. By contrast, pygmy hippos, like docile little Moo Deng, live a quiet existence alone or in pairs. If another pygmy hippo happens to cross their path, observations show that they are generally unbothered. Unlike their hyper-belligerent cousins, pygmy hippos are so reclusive and elusive that they're nearly impossible to observe in the wild. Much of what we know about them comes from zoo studies. What we do know is that their reclusive existence in the forest means that they are vulnerable to human threats, like logging. There are other key differences between these two hippo species. A lot can happen in 4 million years, which is about how long ago these two species diverged. The most obvious is, of course, that common hippos, the second largest land animal after elephants, can weigh over 2,500 kilograms, whereas pygmies weigh just about 200 kilograms. To put that in perspective with another giant land animal, a large male river hippo is about the equivalent of 6 male polar bears. And a pygmy hippo is about the size of 1-year-old baby polar bear. The size difference is a classic example of island dwarfism. The pygmy hippos live in the mainland, but their habitat is a small forest surrounded by ocean and savannas unfit for their lifestyle. Food can be hard to find at certain times of the year, and the forest might not provide all the nutrition that larger hippos need. And finally, large animals tend to have trouble keeping cool. River hippos deal with this by staying underwater most of the day, but in the rainforest, they'd struggle not to overheat. When looking at their features, common hippos' eyes, ears, and nostrils are on the top to enable them to lounge submerged in water, while pygmies have rounder heads with eyes set on the side. Common hippos have stubby legs and webbed feet, while pygmies have longer legs and separated toes featuring sharp nails. While they are technically also terrestrial, common hippos spend most of their time in lakes and slow-moving rivers. Almost 80% of their lives are spent bobbing around. One theory as to how they became so enormous is that their massive weight is buoyed by the water, therefore allowing them to get larger and larger over time. By contrast, pygmy hippos spend most of their time on land, which could be why they've remained much smaller than their humongous cousins. The more slender legs of the pygmy hippo allow them to nimbly navigate the forest floor. The differences between these two hippo species raises an interesting question. Did their habitats shape their traits, or did their traits shape where they live? It's one of those classic chicken or egg scenarios. Thanks to her internet fame, Moo Deng has helped shine a light on conservation for these endangered pygmy hippos. This is the pangolin, an incredible eater of ants covered head to toe in scales, and the most heavily poached animal in the world. Pangolins look like the offspring of an anteater and a pine cone, and until pretty recently, they were placed in the same order as anteaters, Xenarthra, but new research has placed them in their own family, Manidae. Their closest known relatives on the evolutionary branch are now believed to be carnivora. There are 8 different species of pangolin, 4 in Asia and 4 in Africa. Depending on the species, they're either arboreal and living in trees, or ground-dwelling and living in burrows, which can be up to 40 meters long and 5 meters below the ground. Pangolins vary in size as well, the smallest being the long-tailed pangolin, whose body is roughly 30 centimeters long, and the largest being the aptly named giant pangolin, whose body is 1.8 meters long. They are covered head to toe in beautiful, defensive scales, which look a lot like scale armor. In fact, King George III was presented with a suit of armor made of pangolin scales in 1820. Pangolin scales are very similar to reptile scales, as they're both made up of keratin, the same stuff that our fingernails are made out of. In fact, pangolins are the only known mammals to have scales at all. Their scales, which overlap each other, are fantastic for warding off ant and termite bites. As well, when attacked by predators like lions or hyenas, the pangolin will curl up into a ball, tucking their head under their armored tail, leaving them virtually impenetrable. Not only do their scales make it near impossible for them to be chewed on by lions, but the edges of their scales can be very sharp, making them even less appealing as an afternoon snack. However, if a pangolin is caught before it's had a chance to roll up, it will defend itself by thrashing its long, muscular tail back and forth, cutting its attacker with its sharp scales. The diet of pangolins consists almost exclusively of ants and termites. And like anteaters, they have a very long and sticky tongue which they use to grab and eat their meals. Depending on the species, a pangolin's tongue can be longer than its body, and unlike our tongue, the pangolin's tongue is rooted down close to their abdomen. In order to keep their tongue sticky, they have an overactive salivary gland which is constantly lubricating their tongue. Their scales aren't their only defense from attacking ants. Their eyelids are incredibly thick, and they can constrict their ears and nostrils to prevent ants and termites from entering. Not only that, but pangolins don't have teeth. Instead, they have very muscular stomachs that are lined with keratinous spines, which they use to break down the prey that they eat live. Kind of like the sarlacc pit. They will also swallow small rocks called gastroliths, which, in combination with their unusual stomachs, help mash and grind down the ants and termites that the pangolin swallows. In order to find their meals, which are typically located in the ground, in hills, or in mounds, pangolins have huge claws designed for digging. The claws are curved and are perfect for breaking through termite mounds, digging up ants, prying open rocks, and reportedly even digging through concrete. Also, arboreal pangolins have a prehensile tail, which they use for gripping branches when climbing up and down trees. Other than their scales, probably everyone's favorite thing about the pangolin is the fact that they're bipedal, and thus look hilarious when they walk, kind of like a T-Rex. They do this because their front legs, while adept at digging, aren't as good at walking, though they are what's called facultative bipeds, meaning they aren't exclusively bipedal and do spend the majority of their time on all fours. Pangolins are very solitary animals and will only interact when courting and mating. Males, which are 50% heavier than females, won't seek out a female. Instead, they'll mark their territory with urine or feces, and the female will come to them. In competition, males will vie for the female's attention by fighting each other with their massive, sharp tails. The mating period lasts from 3 to 5 days, and the gestation varies by species. From the shortest, 65 days for an Indian pangolin, to the longest, 372 days for the Chinese pangolin, though that number does vary depending which study you read. Baby ground-dwelling pangolins will stay in the burrow for about a month while their soft scales harden, after which they'll emerge and ride around on mom's tail, staying with her for about 2 years, all the while learning how to do pangolin things. Pangolins don't reproduce well in captivity, or do well at anything in captivity, to be honest. as they've been described as the hardest animal in the world to captive raise. Which is really unfortunate because pangolins are the most poached animal in the world. They're sold predominantly for their scales, for use in traditional Asian medicine, and their meat is considered a delicacy. Over 1 million pangolins have been illegally bought and sold in the past 10 years alone. And that's crazy, because most people don't even know what a pangolin is. So please, go tell your friends about these amazing animals. Or, send them a link to this video, because pangolins are amazing.
A frightening hunter from the depths of the Amazon rainforest. If looks could kill, you'd be entering a world of pain. This is the flying menace of the jungle, the wide-eyed living insecticide. This is the Potoo.
Today, we're talking about a bird that permanently looks like someone walked in on them while they were doing their business in the restroom.
These are Potoos. They're a bird family found exclusively in the tropical regions of Central and South America. There are 7 different species of these wide-eyed weirdos, and they've adapted to habitats as diverse as the dry deserts of Colombia and the wetlands of the Brazilian Pantanal. These species range in size from 30 to 70 centimeters, or roughly about the size of a pigeon.
If they look a little familiar, that's because we did an episode a couple years ago on their cousins, the frogmouths.
Danielle and the team traveled to Australia to meet the Aussie version of the Potoo.
I think I'm getting some side-eye from this tawny frogmouth. I'm definitely getting side-eye.
You right?
Yeah, lately patting like this.
So this friend here is a tawny frogmouth, and despite how much he might look like an owl, it's not even related. It's actually part of the nightjar family. This is definitely a case of convergent evolution, so they end up looking similar, but stem from completely different lineages.
Their resemblance is not only due to their being related, but also because their behavior is quite similar. During the day, they sit on a branch, adjusting their head to look like they're a part of the tree, and they spend their nights looking for food.
These birds are night owls, but please don't call them that. They actually lack the unique owl feature of facial discs that usually helps owls localize sound. In fact, these birds are actually more closely related to hummingbirds than to hedwig.
Potoos have a few adaptations that make them unique among birds. Their eyes and bills are huge. They've been described as being little more than a flying mouth. That's a solid burn. Their bill opens from ear to ear, and the inside has bright coloration that is thought to attract insects. The upper mandible has a tooth-like protrusion that helps them grab prey. Despite having a pseudo-tooth and pointy bill, they don't rip their prey apart. They just swallow it whole.
The vast majority of their prey are nocturnal insects. Moths are their favorite food, but they'll eat anything that flies. The great Potoos are big enough to swallow small birds whole.
Finding their prey presents a lot of challenges. The rainforest at night is almost pitch black. Other predators use their sense of hearing and chemoreception to find their prey, but as far as we know, Potoos use only their sight. Their gigantic eyes are perfectly adapted to low-light situations. The eyeballs are enormous to provide a longer distance between the lens and the retina. This helps them get more light into the eye and focus on moving prey at night. And their large retina helps Potoos keep high visual acuity when hunting.
Despite being predators themselves, Potoos are harmless to larger animals like ocelots and birds of prey. Their defense strategy consists of hiding in plain sight and being spooky looking.
During the day, they stand on a branch and pretend to be an extension of it. While being perfectly still, they keep an eye on their surroundings through specialized slits on their eyelids. That's right, they can see with their eyes closed. They might not be able to see things in great detail, but they can see movement and changes in light intensity.
If they realize something is approaching them, they'll do one of the following things. They'll fly away, they'll double down and pretend to be a branch even harder, or they'll open their big ol' eyes and ruffle their feathers to make themselves appear bigger.
The last option is what has made them legendary. Their giant peepers are a classic example of startle coloration. The idea is that predators will get so weirded out by them that they'll just leave the bird alone. The common and northern Potoos have menacing, bright yellow eyes. Meanwhile, the great Potoo has large black eyes that gives them a sinister look.
To keep up with their spooky aesthetics, these birds have haunting calls that make their environments unnerving.
The 7 Potoo species look alike and are tricky to tell apart. The common and northern Potoo, for example, are identical, and they've only been recognized as separate species since 2016. The only way to tell them apart is by their call. Northern Potoos, which are common in Central America and the Caribbean, sound like this. And the common Potoos, which are mostly found in South America, sound like this. Great Potoos have a melancholic call that has earned them their nickname, Poor Me Ones. Aww, poor guys.
When they're not hunting or cosplaying as sticks, these birds are most likely taking care of a baby.
Their nesting strategy can be described as minimalist. They find a concave branch or stump and lay their egg there. No twigs, no padding necessary. After about a month, the baby hatches. Both parents take an active role in feeding it. After another month, the youngling is ready to go on its way.
And then they'll be set to spook the neighborhood for over a decade. Well done, little Godfellas.
Tasmania is one of the Earth's most remote places. Full of endemic species and majestic landscapes, it's a paradise for nature lovers. The island is almost as far away as possible from our home base, but we needed to fly around the globe to see the unique wildlife that has evolved there. From spiky, egg-laying mammals with electroreceptive powers, to one of the most courageous and misunderstood predators on Earth, to the cutest living teddy bear who'll never back down from a fight, to high-hopping ghosts on a remote island. This is the wildest island in the world.
We just hit the tarmac here in Hobart, Australia, Tasmania. Tasmania, this is crazy. This is about as far away from home as I can possibly be on the globe. Let's go find some adventure.
Tasmania is famous for its amazing marsupials. They're all over the grasslands and forests of the island. But high up in the trees hides a fantastic marsupial you might have never heard about: the common ringtail possum. The ringtail possum is hungriest at night. This marsupial lives in tree canopies all over eastern Australia and Tasmania. They can weigh up to 1 kilogram and are just slightly larger than an eastern gray squirrel. Their prehensile tail helps them navigate the treetops while they search for a meal. Today is the possum's lucky day. A fresh banksia flower has been discovered. It is full of delicious, energy-rich sweet nectar. This is a mutually beneficial arrangement. The banksia flowers can't self-pollinate. Birds and mammals are their main pollinators. After the nectar is consumed, the ringtail possum would move on to the next flower and then head out again in its never-ending quest for food. But being a ringtail is not all fun and mischief. There's a large number of predators after them. In mainland Australia, the red foxes feed on them voraciously. In Tasmania, some of their biggest problems are the quolls.
Tasmania is home to two species of quoll. There's the eastern quoll, such as this lovely little fellow, as well as the larger, more spotted tail quoll.
These chonks usually weigh up to 3.5 kilograms, with some rare cases seeing spotted quolls, also known as tiger quolls, weighing in at 7 kilograms. This makes them 15 times bigger than the smallest quolls. Quolls are the closest living relatives to the Tasmanian Devils, and like Tassies, they're primarily nocturnal predators. Given their vast terrain, quolls are quite adaptable and thrive in a variety of environments, from forests to grasslands to jungle to arid shrubland.
Quolls are almost all-terrain animals because they're very capable climbers, diggers, and even swimmers.
They'll do whatever it takes to find a meal.
Quolls are known for eating carrion, but they're also very capable hunters. They'll find all kinds of small vertebrates and insects to snack on. Quolls are also known for eating eggs from all kinds of nests, from turtles or birds.
But the largest species, the tiger quoll, prefers larger prey. These chunky cuties will go after echidnas and possums. But they seem to have a particular interest in cameramen. Tiger quolls are the largest carnivorous marsupial on mainland Australia, with their cousins, the Tassie Devils, being the largest in the world. They're called tiger quolls because of their spots, which extend all the way to their tail. Of course, they should have been called leopard quolls, since tigers aren't spotted, but whatever. They have large territories of up to 500 hectares and can cover 6 kilometers a night. Quolls are nocturnal animals, and they live in holes in the ground, in dens, or in tree hollows. Because of this, they are quite good climbers, be it on trees or shoulders.
Ooh.
Forever coming in second, the tiger quoll has the second strongest bite relative to body size among mammals, being ousted by their devilish cousins. Tiger quolls use their strong jaws to break the neck of their prey, pouncing on them and biting the base of their target's skull. While tiger quolls get their name from their spots, all species of quoll are polka-dotted.
My favorite thing about these quolls really is their beautifully decorated pelts. It's very endearing just how individually spotted every single one is. Every quoll has their own fingerprint of spots. They use it to identify one another. It helps them with camouflage, mimicking the light dappling across the forest floor between the leaves.
Quolls are solitary creatures and only meet up to mate, though they do have communal latrines of sorts, where up to 100 individuals poop. They're thought to have a social purpose for letting each other know who lives in the neighborhood, who they're hooking up with, and what they're eating. It's like Reddit, but with feces. Mating happens in the winter, and like other marsupials, they give birth to very underdeveloped young who have to climb up into the pouch in order to survive.
The quoll will breed once a year, and because she only has 6 teats, she can only raise 6 young at a time. You could say that quolls live hard and fast, with a life expectancy of only 4 years, but one of the biggest threats to their survival are feral cats.
Eastern quolls, in particular, have faced a hard time ever since Europeans started introducing non-native species, like cats and foxes, which outcompete them for prey and predate upon them as well.
And we're gonna see a black morph of a quoll. Oh, that's so gorgeous. So this is a black color morph of the eastern quoll, and they come in two colors. Who knew? Gotta say, this one's my favorite.
The black morph of eastern quolls was particularly hard hit by early European settlers, hunting them to make rugs out of their pelts. While they used to roam mainland Australia, they've gone extinct in the region and can now only be found in Tasmania.
Despite the fact that eastern quolls have gone extinct on mainland Australia, there are efforts to reintroduce populations from Tasmania.
Since 2016, there have been several programs aimed at reintroducing eastern quolls to mainland Australia. The first program was a reintroduction into a fenced reserve north of Canberra in 2016. The program has been successful, and with more recent introduction, their numbers have been growing steadily. They were raised in captivity with very little human intervention in a Tasmanian sanctuary to prevent them from becoming too used to people. Then, they were outfitted with GPS collars in order to track their activity in the wild. Fortunately, the reintroduced eastern quolls started reproducing soon after, and hopefully they'll repopulate mainland Australia and claw their way back from the brink of extinction. Moving on to even weirder carnivores, we head to the forests of Tasmania to see the weirdest carnivore on the island. An adorable ant-eating ball of needles with extrasensory powers.
Today I'm exploring some mountains up in the east coast of Tasmania, really hoping to catch a glimpse of some wild echidnas. Our chances might be slim, but we gotta look. Really hope we can find some of our spiky little monotreme friends.
Echidnas are one of the oldest surviving mammals on the planet. The oldest known fossil of an echidna came from an Australian cave deposit from 17 million years ago, during the early Miocene era, when an ancestor of the rhinoceros was still roaming North America. Found only in Australia and New Guinea, there are several species of echidna. But here in Australia, the short-beaked echidna reigns uncontested.
And they will live anywhere that they can find food, from the deserts to the alpine mountains to the coasts and the grasslands.
Echidnas are one of two extant genera in the monotreme order.
They've got some of the strangest morphology among mammals. These guys are monotremes, and what that means is that they lay eggs.
For this unusual order containing echidnas and platypuses, laying eggs is thought to be an evolutionary survival strategy. Similar to marsupials, who keep their undeveloped young in their pouches, monotremes keep their eggs in their pouches. But unlike many marsupials, early monotremes found success with a life in the water. And having their offspring safe from drowning in the protection of the egg proved to give them a much higher chance of survival. Today, echidnas have found new niches to exploit and don't swim all that much. But with no evolutionary pressure to change, they've kept on with their unusual reproductive strategy. In fact, many of their seemingly strange anatomical features were commonplace among early mammals, and we're the weird ones for not laying eggs.
We were just driving along the highway, heading to our first hotel, and lo and behold, there were two echidnas on the side of the road.
Also known as spiny anteaters, echidnas have received this misnomer due to their diet, rather than relation to actual anteaters. Their diet is primarily made up of ants and termites, and their snouts are perfectly adapted for this tasty regimen. Using their powerful claws to dig up prey, they'll stick their lengthy snouts into the ground, extending their long, sticky tongues to catch insects, leaving the cutest little nose holes in the ground. Their tongues are quite long, measuring up to 18 centimeters, about half the length of their entire body. Since they don't have any teeth, echidnas chew their meals by pressing them against the roof of their mouths, crushing them with their powerful tongues. But they have one more adaptation that helps them find a meal: a sixth sense. Their snouts are lined with electroreceptors that can detect even the slightest of muscle movements, allowing the echidnas to target their prey with razor accuracy. They are one of the few terrestrial animals that have this superpower. Part of their efficacy on the hunt comes from their surprisingly large brains. Their brains have a huge prefrontal cortex. In humans, this is the part of the brain that we use for higher-level strategic thinking. They have a lot of folds in their brains, which suggests that they are relatively complex. Experiments have found that they are as smart as cats and rats. Scientists have even discovered that echidnas experience rapid eye movement while sleeping. In humans, REM sleep is connected with dreaming. What could an echidna be dreaming about? Probably chasing chaos emeralds.
I'm gonna try and get a little bit closer. There were two when we were driving by. Oh, there he is. Oh, guys. Can you see that right behind me? This guy's being shy though. He's hiding in the bushes. Well, it was just a glimpse, but we've seen two echidnas, so not bad.
Echidnas are brimming with curiosities. One of the other traits that makes them near unique among mammals is that their stomachs are almost devoid of acid. Since they have no stomach acid, a lot of harder materials pass straight through them, leading some scientists to believe that they have no stomachs at all, as a stomach is defined as the part of the digestive system that has acid to break down solids. This lack of acid stems from their ancestors' diet, which didn't require heavy acid to digest, and so they stopped expending energy to produce it. The next thing on the long list of the echidna's oddities are their eyes. Their eyes are unique in the animal world because they're hard and flat. Echidnas have possibly the flattest eyes among mammals, giving them an insane focal length, allowing them to spot predators from great distances. Their eyes are also very hard, protecting them from getting stabbed by their spikes when they roll into a ball. Those spikes are actually modified hairs and are primarily made of keratin. They are the echidna's first line of defense.
He's just staying balled up. He's probably being shy because we're kind of in his way right now.
When they're threatened, they'll go into a ball, exposing their sharp spines to ward off predators. Their other option is to go and hide in their burrows. But they're also very good at not getting spotted in the first place.
Among all this brush and scrub land, echidnas would actually have very good camouflage. They blend in really well with the ground here.
Their spines resemble the scraggly vegetation that they live in, making them tough for a predator to spot. Despite living in areas with extreme weather, they don't really do well in heat. This is because they can't sweat.
Short-beaked echidnas occupy territory of about 50 hectares, and will meet up with other echidnas when it's time to mate.
If laying eggs wasn't unusual enough, the echidna's reproductive strategy gets even weirder. Males have four-pronged genitalia, and females have two-branched reproductive tracts. This allows the male to alternate, only using two at a time to deposit his specimen in each of the female's tracts while the other two rest. In order to mate without hurting themselves on the female's spikes, the males have fairly long appendages,
And they are covered in spines to help induce ovulation. Many males will simultaneously court a female, forming a train, with the dominant males up front. This gives the female several chances to mate successfully.
Despite their endless list of mysteries, echidnas are not as rare as you might expect. They have a massive range, and despite threats from invasive species and habitat destruction, their populations are waddling strong. Animals aren't the only wonder of Tasmania. This majestic island is full of beautiful beaches, bluffs, forests, and mountains. Beauty can be found in the least expected places.
So by no means at all am I a morning person, but I got up at the crack of dawn today to try and see the sunrise. And from where I am, it's going to be quite a spectacular view. I'm standing on a formation called the Tessellated Pavement. It's kind of a geological landmark almost. It's a really rare phenomenon where just the right type of rock can get eroded away in just such a way that it creates striations. There's salt crystals from the ocean that get washed up gradually onto this rock, and eventually those crystals expand and kind of splits that rock pavement. And it ends up looking like a checkerboard almost, or a bunch of tiles. Hence the name Tessellated Pavement. But check this out. This is what I came out here for. And it is so stunning. I can't wait to get down there. I need to hurry up before the sun rises too much. Look at those colors. There are very few things that'll get me up before sunrise. This has got to be one of them. It's really cool the way that the water's eroded, or the water and the salt have eroded away this rock. I can't believe what I'm seeing here. Like, I know I keep saying that every day, but every day has something new for me that I never thought I'd get to see. And the more of the world I get to see, the more I understand that we need to work harder to protect it. I think everyone should get the chance to appreciate nature in its splendor, as I am right now. I want this to last for generations. I'm just one mortal human, you know? And I realize that a lot of people get to see a lot of amazing things, but I didn't really ever think that I'd get the chance to do this kind of thing.
Despite its astonishing beauty, Tasmania has predators that can be dangerous to you. The deadliest animal to humans is, of course, a snake. The tiger snake is responsible for close to 20% of all snake bites in Australia. Its name is well earned. Tiger snakes are striped to blend in with the grass, and their voraciousness is on par with that of the largest felines. When on the prowl, the tiger snake slithers quietly along the grasslands, scanning for prey. As it moves, it flicks its tongue to capture the scent trails of the animals of the area. Water is not an obstacle for this snake. It can swim and stay submerged for close to 10 minutes. And, like a tiger shark, tiger snakes can catch prey underwater, with fish and frogs being their main targets. But today, this snake feels like eating something bigger. An invasive brown rat is foraging nearby. The snake waits for the right time to launch its attack. Now! The rat doesn't make it far. The tiger snake injects a powerful cocktail of neurotoxins and hemotoxins that paralyzes the rat. Then, it swallows it whole. After the meal, all there is to do is find a quiet place to relax and digest. Thanks to these snakes, invasive rats will always have to sleep with one eye open in Tasmania. But if you're a native mammal, your biggest fear is probably the apex predator of Tasmania. They're the largest land predators and have become synonymous with the island. The Tasmanian Devil. They look like a bear mixed with a dog, or with the pouch of a koala. In fact, early 19th century scientists referred to Tassies as bear devils due to this superficial resemblance. Yet, despite the resemblance, they are marsupials and are more closely related to koalas than bears. Tassie devils are the largest carnivorous marsupials left in the world. There used to be the Tasmanian tigers, aka thylacines, but since they've gone extinct, these are the next in line. But they're in danger too. Aren't you, sweetie? Around 3,000 years ago, Tassies did roam mainland Australia, but they were driven out by dingoes and humans, which either hunted them or hunted out their prey, causing them to go extinct in the region. If King Tut were to have visited Australia, he might have seen a devil roaming in the outback. Here in Tasmania, these devils can still thrive. When Europeans first landed in Tasmania, at night they heard the ravenous howls of the Tasmanian devil, a sound truly like none other, and assumed that it must originate from vicious killing machines, hence the name. Oh dear. Look at these scrappy youngsters. Are really going at it. Their name is a bit of a misnomer, to be honest, because these little guys are all about the bluff. These guys can put on quite a display. They'll open their jaws wide and snarl and grunt and make all kinds of noises. And that's really where their name came from. While they're not as aggressive as their haunting howl may lead you to believe, they do have incredibly powerful bites. Tasmanian devils have the strongest bite relative to body size among mammals and can easily crush bone. Their heads are huge relative to their body size, and they have large muscular jaws. Their skulls bear a striking resemblance to another bone crusher, the hyena. They need these powerful jaws because when they eat, they consume the entire animal. Meat, bones, sinew, everything. Their bites exude a force of 553 newtons, crushing bones with their molars and tearing flesh with their giant incisors. They can open their mouths up to 80 degrees, allowing them to take bites as big as possible. Now, Tassie devils are scavengers. They get most of the nutrition they need from finding dead animals, but they will also supplement that by finding other small vertebrates and the occasional bugs if they can. Carrion makes up the largest portion of their diet, and they need their bone-crushing jaws to eat all the parts of the carcass deemed unappetizing by other scavengers and predators. With Tasmania being the roadkill capital of the world, the eating can be good, so long as they don't themselves turn into roadkill. So as a rule, Tasmanian devils don't like company. While they are solitary creatures, a meal is what brings them all together. Tassies are primarily nocturnal, and when the sun goes down, the devils come out to eat. There are usually between 5 and 12 devils within range of one another, and in a surprising act of kindness, their devilish howls draw their fellow Tassies to the scene of the crime. The devils pour out of the night and descend onto their meal. Howls echo through the night. They go into a feeding frenzy, ripping and tearing at flesh as quickly as possible. Between the yelps, the sound of bones snapping and flesh tearing fills the air. The dominant males eat first, and they get their choice of the softest and tastiest meat, like the eyes and innards. The smaller devils will have to settle for the less desirable bits, like the tails and feet. But they don't go down without a fight. And dinner time proves to be a good time for smaller males to prove themselves. Fearless, this male, fed up with having to eat the scraps, decides to challenge the dominant male. He lunges, snapping at the bigger male with his sharp incisors. The two males collide, trying to puncture each other's necks. But the larger male doesn't back down. With his bulk and larger teeth, the challenger has little chance. He did his best, but with blood dripping from his face, he'll have to settle for the tail after all. Dinner is a dangerous affair. This battle may be over, but the fighting will continue. Tasmanian Devils have no chill. They will continue snapping at each other, trying to usurp the pecking order until the carcass is gone. Devils walk away from feeding almost as bloody as their prey. By adulthood, Tassies become heavily scarred from battle, looking more and more like their namesake with the passing years.
Now, I've seen this entire feeding, and they've eaten this entire corpse in about 30 minutes flat. There's nothing left now but a few bones and skin. Because when you're a scavenger, you don't know when your next meal will be. So you have to rely on eating as much as you can while you still can.
The devils are ravenous and will devour every part of a carcass, leaving nothing but bloodstains on the ground and howls in the air.
Would you believe that these scrappy little guys behind me are actually Tasmania's largest predator? They might be small in regards to what we're used to in North America, with some rather large predators, but here in Tasmania, everything's a little bit smaller. And dwarfism is most often found on islands because there's less resources, less space to claim territories, and just less room to grow.
While their size certainly contributes to their cute charm, so does their gait. You may have noticed that they look funny when they run. This is because their forelimbs are longer than their hind limbs. This is unusual in the animal world, but they have these long forelimbs to help them climb.
The trees in Tasmania are often very twisted and low to the ground. That works in their favor because they don't like going too high.
Juvenile devils, in particular, are good at climbing because they're often targeted by hungry adult males, and escaping into the trees is a handy trick. Not only are they good climbers, but they're quite adept swimmers too. Tassie devils will swim when they need to cross rivers in their territory, but they also love hanging out in the water. They'll often wade out just to splash around, or to lay down in shallow water in order to cool off and relax.
Who knew that Tassie devils liked swimming?
Males are slightly larger than the females, and in the wild, they will weigh about 6 kilograms. Their main fat reservoir is actually located in their tails, and a plump tail is a sign of a healthy Tassie.
These cute little pink ears are her tools for thermoregulation. Tassie devils don't really have many sweat glands, so in order to try and exude some heat, they'll pump blood through those ears, they'll turn a bright pinkish red color. Through that, they'll be able to reduce their body temperature.
Tassies live fast and furious lives. Living to only 5 years of age in the wild, it's an intense ride.
A mother Tassie devil's pregnancy only lasts about 21 days, after which she gives birth to 18 to 30 young. But she only has 4 teats, so only 4 lucky individuals get to latch on and grow.
The surviving pups will stay with their mum for 3 months after they leave the pouch, becoming independent in the summer.
These youngsters are all playing chase, but it's really training for them to become more territorial, defending their dens, defending their young, and most importantly, defending their food.
While having such short lives doesn't sound great, it might actually be helping the species as a whole survive. In 1996, a disease called facial tumor disease started spreading like wildfire among the Tassie devils. And unfortunately, it has decimated about 90% of the populations all across Tasmania. In essence, devil facial tumor disease, or DFTD, is a cancer of Schwann cells, which are fundamental parts of the peripheral nervous system. Facial tumor disease is one of the only communicable cancers known to science. The disease starts as a growth around the mouth. As it spreads through their bodies, it pushes their teeth out from their mouths, making it impossible for them to eat, starving them to death. The disease will also grow into their joints, bones, and will cause mass organ failure. It also decimates their immune system, making them vulnerable to other diseases. It spreads quickly through populations and can completely eliminate an entire local population of devils in under a year. The reason it spreads so quickly is that it's transmissible through bites, and biting each other when competing for food and mates is a natural part of a Tassie's life. Symptoms may not always appear right away, and young devils may get it without presenting. They can pass it to others, and before we can do anything, the entire population will have been eliminated. Tasmanian devils were expected to go extinct by 2011, but thanks to conservation efforts here on Tasmania, they are still hanging on. Aren't you, little guy? There is a vaccine, but it is only effective against one strain of the disease, and there are many. In 2015, just 5 devils were successfully treated. Fortunately, it's quite possible that the devils will be able to beat this disease naturally. Since their generations are so short, they can quickly adapt to circumstances like these. Devils that have genes that make them immune to the disease are becoming more and more common. Scientists now believe that there is a 57% chance that the devils will be able to coexist with the disease. But that doesn't mean we're not trying to help the odds. Young Tassie devils who are born in conservation like this one are what's called an insurance population. They'll carry the genetic diversity that might eventually repopulate the entire island. For those Tassies that are lucky enough to be rewilded, it's always considered what genes are being released into what areas to maintain that genetic diversity. One of the most ambitious captive release programs was on an island off the east coast of Tasmania. With no roads, electricity, or permanent residents, Maria Island serves as the perfect site for Tassie devils. In 2012, 15 captive-raised, disease-free devils were released onto the island, and since their release, their population has thrived. Today, there are over 100 devils living healthy, tumor-free lives on the island.
There he is.
Since then, 17 devils have been returned to the mainland in hopes of passing their stronger genes onto the next generation. Maria Island is not only a haven for Tasmanian devils, but also for a large variety of native fauna, free from invasive species such as cats and foxes. The most iconic of all the Maria Island residents is by far the real-life teddy bear, the wombat. We just ferried across from Treebunna all the way to Maria Island. Now, this has been reserved as a national park to be untouched by humans. Now it's somewhat of a haven for all kinds of Tasmanian wildlife. This island was at first colonized as a penitentiary, but has since been shut down and for the past 150 years has been preserved as a national park.
considering this hill behind me is absolutely covered in animal feces of all kinds, I'd say our chances of finding wildlife out here are going to be excellent. Have you ever been so excited about poop? I haven't. Well, we're definitely in wombat country. There's a little mound behind me full of burrows. And you might assume that these burrows could be any small mammals. But once again, the poop gives it away. Where there are poop cubes, there are wombats. I knew I had a good feeling about this. Right over there is the first wombat we've spotted.
Wombats are a family of marsupials closely related to koalas. Only found in Australia, there are 3 living species of wombat. The common wombat is the most prolific and are found in southeastern Australia as well as here in Tasmania. The other 2 species are their ugly cousins, the northern and southern hairy-nosed wombat, which are primarily found in Queensland and southern Australia respectively. The hairy-nosed wombat looks like someone had to draw a wombat from memory, but got confused halfway through and drew a possum instead. Wombats are famous for their chill attitudes, spending 3 to 8 hours a day eating. But despite their reputation, in wombat country, things can get pretty spicy. For male wombats, territory is everything, and this male is looking to expand his. The challenging male approaches. The 2 competitors square off, preparing for an all-out brawl. The challenger backs off. But not for long. The 2 males slam into each other like knights in the joust, or more aptly, like 2 stuffed animals being smashed together. They grapple, each looking for advantage. They snap and claw at one another, using their heavy bodies to try and knock the other to the ground. This is Mortal Wombat. In the end, size is king, and the dominant male stays that way. In a final message of their distaste for one another, they both scrape the ground with their front legs. In the wombat world, this is akin to a death threat. It may be an insult, but it really looks like they're winding up. Wombat combat is serious business. While it may be hard to tell from seeing pictures of wombats, these cuties can be quite large. They can reach up to 1 meter in length and weigh up to 30 kilograms. Even as juveniles, they're quite large, as I soon learned.
I feel like a quarterback with the biggest football of all time. It's quite a heavy, sturdy animal. They're actually very muscular, despite how round they might look.
And they put that muscle to good use. While they may look pudgy, they can run pretty fast as Usain Bolt, for up to a minute. Wombats are herbivores, and they hoover up everything in front of them, from shrubs to roots to hopefully not monopods. Oh, phew.
The food that they eat is a lot of grasses and plants, so it is very low-calorie food. They're not likely to put on much fat, but they are likely to build lots and lots of muscle. This one likes my boot. Oh, you're personalizing them for me, thank you. Huh?
Since their diet is made up of vast quantities of hard plant matter, their teeth are constantly being worn down, and so wombats have developed rodent-like teeth that never stop growing.
You can see these youngsters are having a good chew on this log, and that's because wombats have continuously growing teeth that they need to keep wearing down in order to stay healthy.
This is a great example of convergent evolution, as wombats are in no way related to beavers, but they both share the same evolutionary strategy. While it's hard to imagine these wombats ever taking a break from munching away, They can survive several days without eating. They have a very slow metabolism, and it can take them up to 2 weeks to digest a meal. This can be a helpful tool when they're trapped in their burrows, either by a predator or by a bushfire. Wombats are nocturnal, and they don't have great vision, so instead they rely on their big leathery noses to find exactly what they're looking for: low-lying plant matter. Wombats are excellent diggers and come equipped with powerful claws built for digging. Wombats are natural excavators. They've got very powerful claws that they use for burrowing. In fact, they're the largest burrowing marsupial in the world. Wombats have powerful front legs and strong claws that help them dig through just about anything. While you might think that when they dig, some dirt would end up in their pouches, they have evolved to have backwards opening pouches, which prevents any dirt from grinding up their joeys. All that digging has led to some pretty impressive burrows. All the holes to the burrows here right behind me are probably all connected underground. They're so poorly maintained by the wombats themselves, they end up sharing that space with a lot of other animals. Nature's architects, the wombat. Wombats were the heroes of the bushfires in Australia this year because it was reported that they were sharing their burrows with so many species of animals. But that's not quite the right word for it. You could say that a lot of animals were squatting in their burrows during the fires. That would be a little more accurate. Their burrows are massive and can be up to 20 meters long and can have over 15 entrances. A lot of different entrances lead down to the same shared pathways. So they have a little underground network where a lot of animals could cram in if necessary. So intentional sharing or not, good job, little guys. You helped everyone. Wombats usually live in the same burrow their entire lives, unless they're forced to leave it. Several wombats can live in the same burrow, provided it's large enough. These burrows make effective hideouts from predators, but a burrow with an open door does not a safe house make. And so, wombats have developed their own version of blast doors. Their butts. You can see how flat his pelvis is and curved down. That's because they have a cartilage plate that covers their entire pelvis. It kind of acts as a shield because it's almost an inch thick of cartilage. To escape predation, they'll dig in and leave their butt hanging out. Their butt is so well protected that nothing can really get through that. Even a Tassie devil would have a hard time pulling it out by that big cartilage plate. Probably the most famous thing about wombats is what they leave behind, their poo. Their poo is unique in the animal kingdom because it's cubed. That's right, wombats have cubed poo. This is an interesting communication strategy, as it allows them to stack their poo to mark their territory without fear of their unique droppings rolling away. Whether you can use them to roll a critical is still to be determined. Eating as much as they do, wombats can poop up to 100 cubes a day. Yet despite this prolific contribution to science, the mechanics behind its production is still a mystery to us. Scientists have discovered that their poo only solidifies in the last bit of their intestine. Their intestines contain parts that are stretchy and parts that are solid, but how it all comes together to produce cubes is still unknown. Scientists and engineers are still looking at the problem because it's a novel way of making cubes, which could potentially be applied in production chains around the world. When wombats aren't eating, fighting, or pooping, they'll be mating. Mating can happen at any time throughout the year, though it's most common during the rainy season. Unlike many other species of marsupials which give birth to multiple joeys that need to compete to survive, wombats only give birth to one single joey. Born about the size of one of their poop cubes, it won't be for another 6 months until they're ready to leave the pouch. Once they start growing hair, they go from very alien-looking to incredibly cute. By 15 months, they'll be fully weaned and ready to fend for themselves, though they will stick close to mum for another few months, as it's dangerous to go alone. These ones here are only about 12 months old.
Now, in the wild, baby wombats would stay with their mother for up to 20 months. There would only be one joey per mother for about every 2 years. So a mother wombat would spend a lot of energy and time raising just one young.
Scientists are still confirming this, but it's common knowledge that baby wombats are scientifically the cutest things in the world. Wombats are far from being the only marsupial herbivore thriving here. There are 3 members of the kangaroo family in Tasmania: the legendary grey eastern kangaroo and 2 of Australia's most charismatic macropods. Let's meet them. Famous around Australia, but little known elsewhere, the patamelon is probably the most successful marsupial you might have never heard of. They're smaller than kangaroos and wallabies, with an average weight of just about 7 kilograms. There are 7 species scattered around Tasmania, New Guinea, and Eastern Australia. But of course, our focus is on the Tasmanian patamelon. These adorable vegetarians spend their days hiding in the bushes, and their evening foraging in more open areas. They're notoriously skittish, despite the extinction of their main predator, the Tasmanian tiger. But other carnivores like Tassie devils, quolls, and wedge-tailed eagles are still on the prowl, so they stay alert. Patamelon babies are usually born in the fall and are just over a centimeter long at the time of birth. By the time they're 5 months old, they start poking their heads out of the pouch, but won't come out for another month. When they do come out, they're the cutest little guys. So tiny. Twice the size and with a more rough-and-tumble personality, we have the red-necked wallabies. The red-necked wallabies are maybe the most adaptable macropod in the world, and at different times, they have taken over areas of New Zealand, the UK, Ireland, France, and Germany. They reproduce quickly, eat pretty much any vegetation available, and in the absence of predators, their populations grow rapidly. They live all over Tasmania, where they have adapted to all its ecosystems. But the most striking colonies are found on the small islands around Tasmania. One of them is even home to the legendary white wallaby. Off the southeast coast of Tasmania, on Bruny Island, there lives a colony of about 200 albino wallabies. This genetic mutation makes them sensitive to the sun, gives them poor eyesight, and makes them stick out like a sore thumb. Fortunately, their island is free of natural predators, allowing the white wallabies population to thrive. Hopefully it'll stay that way for a long time so that these little kangaroo Caspers can keep Bruny Island as the official home of the white wallaby. Tasmania is teeming with life. There are natural wonders everywhere you look, and amazing species you can't see anywhere else. Thank you for coming along on our adventure as we discovered the strange creatures of Tasmania.
You might not believe this, but otters aren't as cute as you might think. Otters fall into the Lutrinae branch of the family Mustelidae, along with badgers, honey badgers, skunks, martens, minks, polecats, weasels, and wolverines. We've already covered wolverines and minks in other videos, and if you want to learn more about them, you can click right here. Otters are found all over the world in many wet habitats, such as rivers, marshes, lakes, and oceans. They dig dens along the shoreline, similar to beavers, which have tunnels and dry inner chambers. Sea otters, however, rarely come ashore and spend their days in offshore forests of kelp. There are 13 extant species of otters, all of which fall into the categories of semi-aquatic, aquatic, or marine. Their adult size varies depending on the species. Giant river otters, for example, can grow up to 6 feet, or 1.8 meters long, while the Asian small-clawed otter will only grow up to 3 feet, or 0.9 meters long. They have long, slim bodies and powerful webbed feet, which propel them underwater at speeds of up to 11 kilometers or 7 miles per hour. Spending so much of their lives hunting underwater, otters have adapted very well. They can hold their breath for 5 minutes and can dive as deep as the length of 6.5 large school buses. They're kind of like little fuzzy underwater torpedoes. Because of all that swimming, otters need good insulation.
And they have it. Otters can have up to 1 million hairs per square inch, making their coat the thickest in the animal kingdom. Their coat is made up of 2 layers, between which warm air gets trapped. This keeps the otters dry and helps them float. In fact, baby otters have so much air in their coats that they can't dive underwater. While they are born with life jackets, otter pups aren't great swimmers. While mom's off hunting, she ties her babies up in kelp so they can't wander off, like a slimy green straitjacket. Most species of otter hunt for 3 to 5 hours each day, though nursing mothers usually hunt for upwards of 8. They have a high metabolism to keep them warm in the cold waters, and they have to eat 100 grams or 3.5 ounces of fish every hour to survive. Though they mostly subsist on fish, they also eat frogs, crayfish, and crabs. Sea otters, on the other hand, prefer clams, sea urchins, and other shelled creatures. Sea otters will even use stones to break open shellfish on their stomachs, a skill mother otters teach their pups. As we've seen in previous episodes, tool use is not unique to humans. Otters pick a stone that's ideal for cracking shells and carry it around in a pouch under their arm between meals. They generally prefer flat stones that are around the width of a large orange. Baby otters have been observed learning this behavior at as early as 5 weeks. They are chatty, social, playful animals. Though they spend most of their time hunting or sleeping, they also love to wrestle, play, and chase their tails. They form strong bonds and spend their lives in groups, which can be called a bevy, a family, a lodge, a romp, or, when in water, a raft. Asian small-clawed otters are one of the few mammals in the world that mate for life. In fact, of the 5,000 mammals on Earth, only 3 to 5% are known to form lifelong bonds. In the case of the Asian small-clawed otter, they form a family unit in which the female is dominant and rearing duties are shared equally between parents. Older offspring help raise the young and stick around until their parents die and the family unit disbands. But much like the rest of the animal kingdom, it can't all be sunshine and rainbows. When supplies are short, male otters have been observed taking baby otters hostage, holding them ransom until mother otter gives over some food. But wait, it gets worse. Male sea otters often forcibly have sex with baby seals until they die. A male otter will mount a baby seal and hold its poor little head underwater until it drowns. Some otters will continue to have sex with the decaying corpse for weeks. It's worth noting that this kind of thing happens pretty regularly in the animal kingdom, and it's not fair to judge animals by our standards. The morals that we live by aren't universal. Of the 13 extant otter species, scientists have found that with the exception of the North American river otter, all of their populations are shrinking. Which I guess is a good segue to talk about their penises, which are also shrinking. Though scientists are puzzled as to why this is happening, it seems like the culprit is pollution. The same chemical that's linked to shrinking otter penises has also been associated with the decreasing quality and quantity of sperm in humans. Before we wrap this one up, I would also like to tell you about otter poop, because otter poop is fascinating. Otters use their poop, or spraint, to mark their territory and to communicate with other otters. They're very organized creatures and have a designated pooping area separate from their dens. If you were ever to stumble into one of these poop zones, you'd be pleasantly surprised by the bouquet of aromas. Otter poop has been described as having a scent similar to jasmine tea. Cockroaches are one of the most despised and misunderstood creatures in the world. There are thousands of species with important ecological roles, but their name gets tarnished by the few species that have adapted to life among humans. This is the story of the insects that conquered the world millions of years ago, and will still be here well after we're gone. Cockroaches can be easily identified by their flattened oval shape, their small heads with chewing mandibles, and the plate that protects their heads from above. Most species play an important role in their ecosystem as detritus eaters. They recycle the nutrients in rotting plant matter. They also play an important role as a food source to many animals, such as large insects, birds, and rodents.
In one particularly gruesome case, emerald jewel wasps will zombify cockroaches, guide them into a dark den, and then they'll inject them with their larvae. The wasp larva then eats the cockroach alive from the inside.
Cockroaches are found on every continent except Antarctica. They can survive the freezing temperatures of northern latitudes by secreting antifreeze into their open circulatory system.
Different species specialize in different environments, and you can find them in cities, forests, deserts, and even bodies of water. Unlike their close relatives, termites, cockroaches are not eusocial, but they are gregarious. They also like to stick together as families, and colonies are multi-generational.
The only problem is that colonies grow exponentially, especially when fed by our leftovers. They can even eat our hair and our fingernails.
A female German cockroach and her offspring, which are found in homes throughout the world, can produce 30,000 eggs in 1 year, which in some cases can lead to a huge infestation. In New York City, there are an estimated 100 million cockroaches, about 7 for every human.
Living in groups is important to cockroaches because they need their peers to teach them how to cockroach.
German cockroaches raised in captivity were less likely to leave their hiding spots, were less interested in the opposite sex, and were worse at finding food.
They're like incels.
To find each other in their often dark environments, they communicate using pheromones. Some species secrete them through glands, while others, including our beloved German cockroach, deposit their chemical letters in their poo.
Their aversion to light is almost universal among species.
They prefer dark, warm, and moist places. The main exception is the Asian cockroach, which seems to be attracted to light sources and white surfaces.
Despite our collective hatred for them, cockroaches can be truly awesome and incredibly diverse.
The biggest cockroach is the Australian giant burrowing cockroach, which can be 9 centimeters long and weigh up to 35 grams, about as heavy as a hamster. It is also rare among invertebrates, as the mom gives birth to live babies instead of laying eggs. Each brood might produce up to 30 babies.
Almost as long but not nearly as heavy is the giant cockroach from Central and South America.
These cockroaches are relatively light, and when they molt, they're totally white. Spooky. On the other side of the scale are members of the genus Ataphala, which are so tiny that they live among leafcutter ants. They eat the ants' food with impunity because they can mimic the ants' smell and pheromones.
If the colony wants to expand its territory, the cockroach attaches itself to an ant's wings and hitches a ride.
The loudest cockroach is the Madagascar hissing cockroach. They make this terrifying noise when excited, stressed, and during courtship.
The fastest cockroach is the American cockroach. It can cover 50 times its body length in 1 second. The Cutest cockroach pageant is surprisingly tough to call, as they come in a wide range of colors and shapes.
The Prosoplecta genus mimics ladybugs, which to us are adorable, but to predators, they look disgusting. The glow spot cockroaches are a genus that look like Jawas when it's dark out. This might scare predators away, attract lady cockroaches, and Star Wars fans. And some species of the Parasphaerinae subfamily look like cute pillbugs.
Despite their awesomeness, some cockroach species can be harmful to humans. They can play a role in disseminating antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which they carry on their waxy cuticle. They also might have allergens that may cause allergic reactions. Finally, and most disgustingly, cockroaches can crawl into your ears. Though it's very rare, there are a number of reported cases where a cockroach crawls into a human ear and gets stuck. This is very painful as they might bite your eardrum, irritate your skin, and cause bacterial infections. This usually happens at night, so sleep with your ears closed. On the other hand, they can be useful to humans. For example, they're used as food across Asia, where they're deep fried. Their insides are apparently soft like cottage cheese. Even cooler, scientists are making remote-controlled cockroach cyborgs. They can even control their movements through their phone. Someday, they might be used for reconnaissance or rescue missions. Eventually, you might be able to tell your army of cockroaches to grab you a beer. One of the main myths about cockroaches is that they can survive nuclear warfare. This is not entirely false. An explosion will kill them, but they're way better equipped than us to survive nuclear fallout. They do have much higher radiation resistance, although it's not higher than other insects like botflies. I tried to write an intro to this video, but I just got caught looking at all the insane cuteness that is red pandas. Here's one standing up. Here's one climbing around. Here's one doing red panda things. Red pandas are a mystery to me. They're objectively the cutest mammals ever. Seriously, hold them up against anything, even baby things. Kitten? Nope. Puppy? Nope. Otter? Nuh-uh. Fennec fox? Get out of here. But despite this, they are endangered. The animal with which they share a name, the giant panda, is having similar problems. But since their adoption as the poster bear for almost every conservation effort ever, and the cuteness factor, their population in the wild has increased nearly 17% since 2003. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's way better than the estimated 50% decrease in red panda population since 2001. That being said, the red panda is a very solitary animal that spends most of its life in the trees of Nepal and India, near the Himalayas, and it is very difficult to accurately track their population. Speaking of the giant panda, the red panda, or Ailurus fulgens, meaning firecat in Latin, was first described in 1825, 48 years before the giant panda was catalogued. Another name they go by is firefox, which is where Firefox got its name, despite the fact that their logo is an actual fox on fire. It doesn't make sense. Their taxonomy classification has been controversial since their discovery, and they've been placed in the Procyonidae family with raccoons, the Ursidae family with bears, in the Ailuropoda family with the giant panda, and now they've been placed in their own family, Ailuridae. While they're only found in the wild in parts of Nepal and India, fossil records have found a different species of red panda near Tennessee. The fossils date between 4 and 7 million years ago and reveals a giant red panda the size of a mountain lion. Red pandas' head and body measure around 60 centimeters long and their tails are another 60 centimeters. Since they spend so much time in trees, they need those big tails for balance. They will also wrap the tails around themselves for warmth, which is just the cutest! Males are slightly heavier, weighing between 4 and 6 kilos, compared to 3 and 6 kilos for females. They have long, soft, adorable auburn fur on their upper body and darker brown fur on their underbody. They have distinct white markings on their face that are almost luminescent and helpful for the cubs to find their mothers in the dark. Their tail is ringed in auburn and beige, which helps them camouflage against the reddish-brown, moss-covered fir trees in which they live. They have hair on the soles of their feet, which keeps their tootsies warm on the cold winter snow, as well as providing some extra grip when climbing slick branches. Weirdly enough, they even have a link to lizards and snakes, and they use their tongues to taste the air. On the underside of their tongue, they have enlarged papillae, which allows them to analyze vapors to detect scents of predators and prey, which is probably why there are so many adorable pictures of red pandas sticking their tongue out. Unfortunately, they're not that sassy. Red pandas, like their in-name-only brethren, survive mostly on bamboo and small insects. They generally eat around 200,000 leaves of bamboo a day, spending around 10 to 14 hours of the day eating, and the rest of the day is spent sleeping. Like giant pandas, the red panda has a wrist bone that acts as a false thumb, which allows them to easily grab bamboo shoots. Their main predator is the clouded leopard, which are insanely good at climbing the trees in which red pandas live. But it's like the cutest predator for the cutest prey. I know many of you have asked for an episode on clouded leopards, so I'm gonna save the details for later. Their other big threat, and a major contributor to their endangerment, are of course poachers. Red panda tails are highly prized and used in some parts of China as good luck charms at weddings. Dating back as far as the 1800s, red pandas were a must-have accessory in the Victorian era, and many were panda-napped and taken as pets by Victorians. This is known as the red panda curse. Their population has been gutted by people stealing them and taking them out of their natural habitats. The scary thing is, while elephant tusks fetch a lot of money on the black market, in the prime red panda poaching time, so the 1970s, poachers were only paid the equivalent of $1 per red panda, which is a crazy low amount of money to have to kill the cutest creature on the face of the earth. On to lighter things. If you heard a red panda, you might not know it. They're normally very quiet, but when they do make noise, they tweet, like birds. Santa's reindeer, or caribou as we like to call them here in Canada, were either all females or very young males that were replaced every year. Unlike other deer species, both sexes of reindeer grow antlers. Older males' antlers fall off in early December, well before Santa comes around with his flying herd. The females, on the other hand, keep their antlers until early spring. Young males also keep their antlers later into the year, meaning that Santa either replaces his herd of reindeer every year, a chilling thought, or they're all ladies. Take that, patriarchy! There are many different types of reindeer, or Rangifer tarandus, and they can be found throughout the Arctic, tundra, boreal forests, and really anywhere cold in Europe and North America. In A Visit from St. Nicholas by Clement C. Moore, the first poem to feature reindeer alongside Santa, the reindeer were described as tiny. If you've ever seen a reindeer, you probably wouldn't use that word. Reindeer weigh up to 180 kilograms or 400 pounds and stand up to 1.7 meters or 5.6 feet tall at the shoulder. Add their massive antlers to that, which can grow up to a meter or 3.2 feet wide and 1.3 meters or 4.2 feet long, and you have anything but tiny. The reindeer in the poem that pull Santa's sleigh were likely the Norwegian subspecies, the Svalbard reindeer, which were much smaller. They weigh around 75 kilos or 165 pounds and measure around 80 centimeters or 2.5 feet tall. It's just so cute. Reindeer start growing those impressive antlers in the spring. The males use them for fighting one another to impress females. And since their mating season is in the fall, there's no need to keep the antlers around much after that. The females, however, keep their antlers, likely to give them a competitive advantage when scrounging for food for her and her baby in the winter months. When the males lose their antlers, the antlered females take the position as top of the food hierarchy. But this doesn't explain why females need antlers in the first place. One theory suggests that female reindeers grow antlers so they'll look like young males. Adult males will confront younger males as soon as they become a threat, potentially even pushing him out of the herd. This strategy is used by the mothers to confuse the adult males as to who the young males really are, buying some time for them to grow bigger before setting out on their own, thus giving them a better chance at survival and continuing the gene pool. A newer theory suggests that female reindeer have antlers because a large part of their habitat is open terrain, and they need those antlers for defense, much more so than, say, white-tailed deer, which live in more densely wooded areas. Reindeer are purpose-built, cold-weather survivors. Their coats are made up of two layers, a woolly inner layer and a long-haired outer layer made up of styrofoam-like hollow hairs. These trap warm air in and keep them insulated from the elements. Not only does this hollow hair provide warmth, but also buoyancy. Much of their territory is made up of rivers, and rivers need crossing. Lucky for reindeer, their hollow fur acts almost like a life jacket, and they ride much higher in the water than other mammals. Not only that, but they employ the same counter-current heat exchange system that ducks do. You can click here to check out that episode. You'll like it. Basically, The blood that is pumped into their legs is cooled by the blood returning from their legs. This keeps their legs at a temperature warm enough to not freeze, but cold enough that there isn't a massive heat loss. Also, their noses help keep them warm by warming up the air when they breathe in before it enters the lung. They also have adaptive hooves. In the summer months, when everything is wet, their hooves are spongy, which gives them extra traction. But in the winter, when everything sucks and is frozen, the spongy parts harden and form a horn-like rim. Each hoof has 4 toes that they can spread out across the snow, like snowshoes, distributing their weight. The underside of each hoof is hollowed out, and they can use this crevice as a shovel for digging for food through snow. Possibly the most interesting thing about reindeer is their migration. In 1 year, they will travel more distance than any other mammal in the world. They will travel over 5,000 kilometers or 3,100 miles in a year, often covering more than 37 kilometers or 23 miles per day. Reindeer are quiet animals, and outside of mating, they don't make much noise. When they do vocalize, they use large air sacs in their necks that allow them to emit a hoarse, rattling sound, which males use to deter other males, but females use it to tailor individual calls to their offspring, which they need because reindeer herds can be massive. In 2001, the George River caribou herd in Quebec, Canada, reached 385,000. Unfortunately, that number has since shrunk by 81% to 74,000. This trend is sadly happening around the world, and the last 3 decades have seen reindeer number drop by 60% due to climate change and habitat loss. Let's save Christmas with a Christmas miracle! If we could all just be a little more conscious of our actions and their impact, I'm sure we could all make a big and meaningful change. Let's all pledge to stop being jerks to the wonderful world we live in. When you think of penguins, you probably think of stoic birds braving the snow and ice of Antarctica, a la March of the Penguins, or the dancing penguins of Happy Feet, or the scheming penguins of Madagascar, or that odd Batman villain. There are a lot of penguin things. As much as Coca-Cola would want you to believe, penguins can't be found at the North Pole, or anywhere north of the equator. But not all of them live in the snow and ice. The African penguin is found only on the southwest coast of South Africa, and actually nests in the sand rather than the snow. You can see thousands of them during breeding season, and on some beaches, they'll often nest right beside you as you enjoy the sun. African penguins are a medium-sized bird, around 60 centimeters tall, weighing around 11 kilos, and like all their penguin cousins, they are flightless. They are also one of the types of penguins that Danny DeVito, as the Penguin, arms with rockets in an attempt to destroy Gotham in Batman Returns. It was a simpler time. African penguins spend their days swimming, catching fish, and trying to avoid being caught themselves by predators like sharks and killer whales. Not shooting rockets at Batman, unfortunately. Their scientific name is Phoniscus, which translates to wedge, which is appropriate because they're like solid little wedge-shaped torpedoes. That distinctive black and white penguin coloration is an adaptation to reduce their risk of being eaten. Predators looking up at them in the water will see their white bellies, which blends in with the sky above, and predators looking down at them in the water will see their black backs, which blends in with the dark water. Besides predators, African penguins are also vulnerable to humans. Big surprise. Oil spills off the coasts of South Africa have almost wiped them out, and humans swiping their eggs for their breakfast omelets have also drastically reduced their numbers. Penguins have had a hard time of it from us humans ever since the early days of whaling. Penguins have layers of fat to withstand the cold ocean currents, and so are essentially waddling wedges of oil. 19th century mariners extracted the oil in their bodies by squishing them in penguin presses, using the oil for fuel, light, and tanning leather. Penguins also produce a lot of penguin poo, which is called guano. But like we learned in a previous episode about hippos, penguins are also seemingly fond of getting their poo all over the place by projecting it. They have projectile poop. Guano looks disgusting to most of us, but it was like white gold to people before artificial fertilizers were created. So much penguin guano was taken that today's penguins have actually changed their nesting behavior. Rather than placing their eggs in safe guano piles, they nest out in the open on the beach, which makes them very vulnerable to land-based predators like mongoose, leopards, and domestic cats. Many millions of penguins and their eggs have been killed, and they are now highly endangered. Because of our evil ways, African penguins are on their way to extinction. Most estimates predict that they'll be extinct in the wild in 15 to 20 years. But the only hope for them might be breeding in captivity. And so African penguins are the species most often seen in zoos. If you've ever seen one in a zoo, you'll know, because you'll have heard their distinctive call, which sounds like a very loud donkey braying. This is how they got their other name, which is jackass penguin.
We know less about the ocean floor than we do about the surface of Mars. That alone should terrify you. But if it doesn't, then perhaps what lives in the deep will.
8 great, immensely powerful arms, each with its 2 rows of deathly suckers. Ooh, look out! That slithering death is right on you!
Today we're talking about going down, to the depths of the ocean floor, of course, to one of the largest and least understood habitats in the universe. Literally, 100% of the surface of Mars has been mapped, while only an estimated 20% of the ocean's floor has been mapped, and only 5% has been explored. That despite the fact that the oceans cover 71% of the Earth's surface. That's scary.
Sometimes we're afraid of big things, and sometimes we're afraid of very little ones. Remember how afraid Keith Hogan was about learning to swim?
That's right. He was scared to go near the water.
Yes.
We have no idea what the heck is lurking in most of the deep ocean, but from what we've seen, we know the creatures down there are weird.
The deep ocean begins around 200 meters down in the twilight zone, below what's called the sunlight or the euphotic zone. Here, the light from the sun barely reaches, and the darkness comes on fast and hard as you descend. Once you hit 1,000 meters, there is no more sunlight left, and photosynthesis isn't possible.
3,000 meters underwater, so it's roughly 8.5 Empire State Buildings stacked end on end. That's how deep underwater we are. And I think the most abundant species is probably these small cream-colored Geodia sponges, these little ball sponges.
Plants that need the sun's energy to survive don't exist down here, which means that food is also more scarce. With no sunlight to warm the water, it's also cold as with temperatures hovering above freezing at just 4 degrees Celsius.
Despite these inhospitable conditions, creatures who have adapted somehow manage to not only survive, but thrive in this dark, food-poor, cold, and high-pressure environment. That's pretty wild.
Now, this atmosphere of ours is often used as an example of lightness, lack of weight, but that isn't so.
Pressure is measured in atmospheres, or ATM. On land, we experience 1 ATM. For every 10 meters you go down underwater, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. So if you're 100 meters below the surface of the water, you're experiencing pressure 10 times of that on land.
Second, and still worse, the force exerted by the atmosphere on the surface of your body is of the order of 15 tons, all unknowing. You've been walking around under such a crushing load.
We experience this as a crushing feeling because we're gas-filled beings. We need air to breathe, and even our ears have pockets of air to help us hear. And I'm not even going to touch on the gas found in our digestive tracts.
Instantly, the gas is beginning to bubble. Very violently, in fact.
The difference between air-breathing creatures and those that dwell thousands of meters below is that they're made up of water, which can't be crushed by more water.
Just like the pressure of air all around our bodies isn't experienced as crushing, these creatures don't even notice the immense pressure that would kill any of us in an instant.
Bring them up to the surface, however, and the lack of pressure begins to cause them metabolic issues, as well as making them look absolutely ridiculous.
This is what a blobfish looks like at surface level, and this is what they're supposed to look like in their deep-sea habitat.
This is part of the reason why it's so difficult to study these deep-sea creatures, because we have to study them in their natural habitats, deep down below.
And that ain't easy. The running joke among researchers is that it's easier to get to space than it is to get to the bottom of the ocean. It's not a funny joke, but it's true.
The moon was seen by Galileo and by the other early astronomers to have strange dark areas upon it, and they assumed that these areas were covered with water and were like our oceans and seas.
Scientists have spent 10 times longer on the moon's surface than they have at the deepest known point of the ocean, which lies almost 11 kilometers below the surface.
There's a reason this point is called Challenger Deep.
Even the maps of Mars we've created are better than the ones we have of what lies at the bottom of our own oceans, by a wide margin.
Off into space. Man, that takes real teamwork.
So, just what kind of weirdos have we encountered in our limited exploration of the deepest oceans?
Let's set the scene by first taking a look at a formation of mostly glass sponges that deep-sea scientists have dubbed the Forest of the Weird. This is the kind of strangeness you can expect when you descend into the depths of the ocean.
Wow, it goes on and on, too.
Every time we do these dives, all I can think about is, this is the type of experience someone would have if they found, like, life on another planet. Everything's so alien to, at least for me, even though I've been doing it for 5 years, it's still like I'm on another planet.
Yeah, and it's definitely the same for me as well, pilot, because even though I work on these sponges, a scene like this is just extraordinary.
So, first up is a real-life creature that has reached the heights of myth and legend, the giant squid.
Despite the fact that the largest specimen found was almost 18 meters long, these elusive giants are extremely hard to encounter in the deep. Most of what we know of them are from dead specimens that have floated up to the surface. They've only been seen alive in their natural deep-sea habitat a handful of times.
In addition to being the largest invertebrates on Earth, giant squid also have the largest eye of any creature on the planet, measuring 25 centimeters across. Because of these huge peepers, where other creatures would be sightless in the depths, giant squid can see just fine. You might not believe me, but this is also a squid. It's called a big fin squid, and there are only 3 known species that live all throughout the deep ocean.
These are the deepest dwelling squid we know of, and their long, draping arms, which are covered in tiny suckers, are thought to catch food as it floats by, or they drag along the seafloor to snatch up its snacks.
All of their arms and tentacles have this long spaghetti-like extension. It's really difficult to tell the arms from the tentacles, which is very unusual for a squid.
The longest big fin was recorded at 6.4 meters, or longer than a giraffe is tall. But when it comes to weird-looking creatures, nothing tops a jelly, who are common inhabitants of the very deep ocean.
Ladies and gentlemen, our subject for today's discussion is fish. And what a great variety there is. One of the strangest fish is the hydromedusan, or jellyfish. They come in 6 delicious colors: strawberry, raspberry, cherry, orange, lemon, and lime.
This hydromedusa jelly, belonging to the genus Crissata, looks like a holiday ornament. And this orange-sized comb jelly, part of a group of jellies known as ctenophores, also looks like it should be hanging from a festive tree.
They're named ctenophores because of their 8 rows of cilia structures called tens. Not only do the tens propel the jellyfish through the water and trap and consume their prey, they also reflect light, making them shimmer and shine in the bright lights of our remotely operated deep-sea vehicles.
Then we have the underwater pillbug on steroids, the giant isopod. You might want to look away.
This woodlice relative is usually about 30 centimeters long. They're believed to be found worldwide throughout the deep seas and are scavengers that clean up the sea floor.
Considering that most isopods that are found at these depths are smaller than a human thumbnail, these giant versions are true weirdos.
These are one of the most charismatic deep-sea animals that you can possibly find. To some people, they're really cute. To some people, they're the stuff of nightmares.
The deep-sea lizardfish, like a lot of deep ocean creatures, has a face made for a horror franchise. This killing machine has the honor of being one of the deepest living apex predators and features a flat head and a mouthful of curved and barbed teeth.
All that to say, they sound a lot scarier than they are, since they only reach a max size of 70 centimeters.
Chimeras, the distant ancient relative of sharks and rays, are also common predators of the deep. Their spooky appearance has led to them being referred to as ghost sharks, and they can grow to be 1.5 meter long specters that feed on crustaceans and mollusks.
Oreofish are true deep ocean weirdos who seem to defy the laws of fishiness by floating at odd angles near steep-sided seamounts.
Oreos, which is short for fish in the Oreostomatidae family, point themselves in the direction of the current, which increases their chances of snagging a snack that floats by and enables them to hold position near the safety of nearby shelter, all while conserving energy when not feeding.
Yep, just gonna go upside down, check you out. I really enjoy these Oreo fish. They kind of look like something out of a cartoon with their giant eyes and their big mouths. These Oreo fish can be a bit territorial, so maybe this fish that really is checking us out here.
When it comes to deep-sea freakiness, nothing comes close to the anglerfish. Looks aside, these toothy beasts are some of the most cunning hunters of the deep. They use a luminescent fin ray to attract prey, the glow of which comes from symbiotic bacteria. Once a curious fish comes too close, it'll quickly be snapped up by the anglerfish. And if you thought the anglerfish was scary, here's what scares the anglerfish.
Now, anybody who hasn't a firm grip on his emotions had better not look anymore, for something's going to happen around here, and I don't mean maybe.
The Atlantic midshipman, which buries itself in the sea floor and uses a wait and ambush hunting strategy, will make a lunch of an anglerfish before it even knows what hit it. The dotted lines of luminous photophores that go down the sides of this fish are where it gets its strange common name. Sticking with the nautical theme, these photophores resemble the buttons down the coats of young naval officers, called midshipsmen.
But just because something's weird doesn't always mean it's scary. Some weird creatures are just straight up cute, like these depth-dwelling octos, which seem to be in some kind of unspoken cuteness competition.
First, there's the flapjack octopus, a member of a unique group called serrate octopuses, which have webbing between their arms. In the case of this little cutie, the webbing gives it that distinct pancake shape. In addition to making them even cuter, fins on either side of their heads are the primary way of getting around, as opposed to the jet propulsion method of other octopods.
Unlike other groups, serrate octopuses can't change their color or skin texture to camouflage themselves in their environment, nor do they have ink.
Finger-like projections on their arms help them locate yummy morsels, like worms and other small invertebrates on the seafloor. To stir up some snacks, the flapjack octopus will flap its arms to disturb the sediment on the bottom.
So without the ability to camouflage, how do these creatures avoid detection? In the deep ocean, they don't need camo, as they can hide in plain sight.
While they stand out to our eyes when we shine a light on their reddish-orange bodies, without the red wavelengths of visible light, these colors actually make them almost imperceptible to predators, like sharks, whales, fish, and fur seals in the dark of the deep ocean.
Well, let's call this fella names, too. He deserves to be sworn at. You old cephalopod, that's you. Octopus punctatus, accent on the punk.
Next up on the list of deep-sea octocuties, we have the so-dubbed Casper octopus. The ghostly appearance of this all-white octopus is what earned it its name.
What stands out about this short-armed octopus is that it was found at more than 4,000 meters below the surface. So far, the only octopuses we've ever observed this deep are finned octopuses of the Serrata suborder, like the flapjack.
So far, this one hasn't even been scientifically classified, since we only know it from images and not from specimens. Maybe someday we'll have a real binomial name for this deep-sea darling.
We can't talk about the deep's cutest octopuses without mentioning the Dubeau octopus, another group of serrate octopods that are seriously adorable. The Potoos genus, of so far 17 species, is nicknamed Dubeau because of their large flapping fins, located above their eyes, that look like an elephant's ears. These cuties are assumed to live around the globe and have been observed as deep as 7,000 meters, making these the deepest dwelling mollusks that we've ever encountered.
Whether it's terrifying or adorable, the whole range of weirdness can be found deep down in our very own oceans. If this is just 5% of what we've discovered, imagine the weird that is lurking in the other 95%.
Basically, the world's life support system is dependent on the ocean, right? A lot of people don't realize that every other breath we take is because of the ocean. All these efforts are to really sort of shine a light on what a wonderful and amazing place the ocean is, including the deep sea, and bring that home. This is our home planet, and we need to understand what's out there.
Small cats are some of the most efficient hunters. Under their cute pointy ears, there's a brain dead set on killing prey. But what sets them apart from each other and makes some species more successful hunters than others? These are the top 10 deadliest small cats. We're taking a look at the 10 deadliest small cats that we know of. It's an incomplete list because some small cats are so elusive and live in such remote locations that we simply don't have enough data. Some cats, like the pampas cat and the Andean cat of South America, the Bornean bay cat and the flat-headed cat of Southeast Asia, and the African golden cat, haven't been studied extensively because of their inaccessible habitats, their low population densities, and security concerns. Let's start our top 10. At number 10, with a 20% hunting success rate, we have the small cat geographically closest to me, the Canadian lynx. This big pod kitty lives in boreal forests all over Canada, Alaska, and has recently been reintroduced to the Colorado Rocky Mountains, where they had gone extinct in the 1970s. These felines are cold weather specialists, with giant snowshoe-like paws to quietly walk in the snow, long fur, and light mottled coats that help them blend in with the trees and snow. Chasing prey in the snow is nearly impossible, but the lynx's long limbs and wide paws allow them to stalk and pounce on their favorite prey, snowshoe hares. In some areas, these cute little bunnies make up 90% of the lynx's diet. But of course, a specialized hunter like this will also catch other mammals, as well as birds and fish. The next feline on the list vaguely resembles a lynx, but it lives in pretty much the opposite environment. We're talking about the 9th deadliest small cat in the world, with a 25% hunting success rate, the caracal. Caracals and lynxes have convergently evolved to have long, powerful legs to pounce on unsuspecting prey. Because of this, caracals are sometimes called Persian lynxes. In grassy areas, their height helps them spot small prey hiding in the foliage. From there, their jumping ability does the rest of the job. Whether they're trying to catch hyraxes, or leap to catch a bird taking flight, or even catching a baby antelope, the caracal's strategy is tried and proven. This hunting success of several species makes caracals one of the small cats, if not the small cat, with the most varied diet. And this has led to the expansion of their range from southern Africa all the way to India, which is great because more people get to see their adorable ears. Hey everyone, we have exciting news! We're thrilled to announce the release of Animalogic's very first book, Strange Creatures. This book dives into the most incredible animals we've ever featured on the show, with each chapter packed with my illustrations and stunning full-color images. It's a fun and engaging way to learn about the animal kingdom, and a perfect tool to spark kids' interest in science. Each chapter breaks down an animal's biology, behavior, and all the coolest facts you need to know about these fascinating creatures. Animalogic's Strange Creatures is a must-have addition to your own library, or the perfect gift for an animal lover this upcoming holiday season. Click the link in the description to check it out, and if you can, order a copy. It would mean the world. Thank you so much, and I hope that you love the book. At number 8, we have another long-legged cat. Hey, I'm seeing a pattern here. This is a North American species, and the closest relative to the Canada lynx. The bobcat, which, despite being smaller than the Canada lynx, has a hunting success rate of up to 30%. Bobcats are the smallest members of the lynx genus. While their range overlaps slightly with the Canada lynx in the Great Lakes region and the Rockies, bobcats inhabit most of southern North America, whereas their larger relatives tend to stay in the forests of the north. Not being able to rely on pouncing on prey in the snow, bobcats are better at chasing prey and will catch any small prey species available in their domain. They thrive in areas as different as the swamps of Florida, the deserts of Texas and northern Mexico, and the forests of the North American East Coast. They're sometimes even seen in suburban areas. Without a specific prey, environment, or hunting style, the motto of the bobcat is quite simply, adapt or die. And it has successfully adapted to kill virtually any small animal in North America. At number 7, we have the Pampas cat. Now we're getting into the almost phantasmagorical cats. Very little is known about this species, except that they're ruthless hunters, with a success rate of around 30%. Depending on who you ask, the pampas cat is one of several closely related species. They're rodent specialists and hunt wild guinea pigs and vizcachas, which are rodents with bunny ears. In some parts of their territory, they also go for birds, like the mostly ground-dwelling tinamou. These solitary cats ambush their prey, but have also been known to dig their prey out of their burrows. Unfortunately, not much footage exists of this beautiful species, but once it does, we'll be the first to show it to you. At number 6, we have a fan favorite, the ridiculously charismatic and deadly sand cat. The killer of the desert, successful in up to 35% of its hunts. Sand cats are full of unique adaptations to survive in the desert. They have long fur to protect their paw pads from the scorching sand, which can sometimes be up to 80 degrees Celsius. Their amazing hearing helps them find any potential meal scurrying around in the sand from hundreds of meters away, and their massive eyes pinpoint food in the dead of night, when they do most of their hunting. In the desert, there's no room to be picky. Sand cats will eat anything: insects, rodents, birds. Whatever falls on their path is a meal. And in their habitat, this is especially important, because since there's no water, sand cats need the moisture inside their prey for hydration. They drink the blood of their prey. Pretty badass little cuties. We're at the halfway mark of our list, so let's name a bonus small cat. One that hides outside your window and under your bed. The one species with the most confirmed kills worldwide. The human's trusty assassin sidekick, the domestic cat. The reason why these murder kittens are not on the list is because their success rate varies wildly depending on the individual and the environment. An outdoor cat can go for rodents, birds, and larger insects, and are generally effective about 10 to 15% of the time, while feral cats can have up to a 35% success rate. But there are so many cats worldwide that they still manage to kill 2.5 billion birds a year. Cats maintain their wild instincts even after thousands of years of domestication and have extremely negative effects on urban and suburban ecosystems. So please, if you have an outdoor cat, consider keeping it inside, or spay or neuter it so that it doesn't contribute to the feral cat population. Okay, now we're getting into the real stone-cold killers. The kitties that send a shiver down every rodent's tiny spine. At number 5, with a 40% hunting success rate, we have one of the most widespread cats you've likely never seen in the wild. The improbably regal jungle cat. Jungle cats thrive in wetlands and dense forests, from the Middle East to Southeast Asia. Their svelte body is built to glide across environments full of danger and low visibility. They're hunted by leopards, tigers, bears, crocs, dholes, and birds of prey. Because of this, they're understandably skittish and very rarely seen by humans. But this trial by fire has only made them stronger. Forced to live always on the lookout for danger, jungle cats have turned into stealth masters that can catch rodents effortlessly. They usually hunt around water, waiting for prey to lower their guard before pouncing. If they're spotted, they can chase prey on land, in trees, and even in water. Truly a menace to small mammals across their range. At number 4, we have the stretched-out cousin of the caracal. With similar jumping prowess, but even longer limbs to thrust itself onto blay rats or other small prey. With a 40 to 45% hunting success rate, this is the serval. Servals are extraordinary jumpers, with a leaping distance of over 3 meters. This is useful when catching rodents on the ground or birds taking flight. Their beautiful coats camouflage them as they sneak their way through the grass of the African savanna. Their large ears are like antennae, always tuning in to the sounds of prey scurrying on the ground. Once prey is detected, servals jump into the air and land with their front paws, stunning their prey. This lethal combination of stealth, speed, and power makes them one of the deadliest cats in the world. To make the podium of the deadliest cats in the world, sometimes you have to go a little off script. This cat challenges one of the main rules of catdom, hating water. These guys not only love water, they kill in it. At number 3, with a 45% hunting success rate, we have the amazing fishing cat. The fishing cat has adapted to life in the marshlands and swamps of South and Southeast Asia by learning to catch the most abundant prey in their ecosystem, fish. These cats sit at the edge of the water, perfectly camouflaged thanks to their mottled coats. And if a fish makes the rookie mistake of getting too close, the cat uses its broad-webbed paw to snatch it out of the water. When other prey, like crustaceans or frogs, are in the water, the fishing cat dives in and catches it while fully submerged. Who knows, maybe in a few million years, they'll evolve to be fully aquatic. Cat dolphins! At number 2, we have one of the smallest of the small cats. This silver medalist weighs only about 2 pounds, a quarter of your average house cat's weight. But mass is no matter of concern for this hunter. With a 50% success rate, this is the second deadliest cat in the world, the rusty spotted cat. Tiny and incredibly agile, the rusty spotted cat is a specialist in jungle warfare. Any potential prey knows that behind any bush, around any corner, and always on the prowl, the rusty spotted cat is ready to kill. The forests of India are home to this little hunter. Its big eyes help the rusty spotted cat observe rodents in the dead of night. A quick, silent pounce and a bite to the neck turns its prey into the dead of that night. After it kills, the rusty spotted cat disappears into the shadows, not to be seen until it gets hungry again. Finally, we get to number 1. What could be the deadliest cat? Maybe an ocelot? Or a monkey-eating margay? No. The wildcat that gave rise to domestic cats? Also no. The answer is surprising due to the rarity of the cat. Why isn't the deadliest cat more common? The gold medalist for deadliest cat is the African black-footed cat, with a whopping 60% hunting success rate. The black-footed cat is a dryland specialist. It lives in almost barren terrain, but survives due to its hunting prowess. It only weighs around 3 pounds, but it eats around a third of its own weight every night. Its massive eyes, which make them also gold medalists as the most adorable cat, help the black-footed cat find prey across their vast domain. A single kitty can walk up to 30 kilometers every night in search of food. As black-footed cats do their patrols, they search for mice, large insects, and birds. A flurry of claws and fangs appear out of the darkness, and the prey is no more. It becomes merely a statistic, one of the thousands of kills each of these cats claim every year. So there you have it, the 10 deadliest and probably cutest small cats in the world. Let me know which one was your favorite and who deserves its own full episode. Let's be honest, it's all of them. Forget fennec foxes and hedgehogs. Move over, quokkas. There's a new viral squee taking over the internet, and her name is Moo Deng. Tiny, shiny, and as round as a Christmas ham. She's even blushing pink from being so dang cute. And don't mess with her, because her cousin's on the other side of the track.